Is it Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter? That's next on 41 Strong. Hey everyone, welcome to 41 Strong Podcast. Chuck Tate here in the Widecast studio downtown Peoria. So good to see you all. 41 Strong is a podcast that delivers encouraging scriptures and stories to help people hold on and stand strong. And if there's ever a day where people need to hold on and stand strong, it is today. What a crazy season we have been in. The last couple of weeks, there's so much to discuss. We need to see revival in America. And I just, we'll get right to it today. Episode 162. And I'm sitting here with my good friend, Veronicah Richards. Veronicah, welcome to 41 Strong.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. And, when I asked you to come on, I had no idea that today is your birthday. And I saw this on, you didn't tell me, I saw it on Facebook this morning. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
Let's sing to her, shall we?
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Veronicah.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Seriously, thank you so much for coming on. And I know this hasn't been an easy time for you. And so I really appreciate you being willing to sit down, because these are conversations that we need to have.
Yes.
And there are some people that would like to let's just sweep all this on the rug. Let's try to move forward. But we have to practice empathy. We have to listen. We need to love like Jesus. We need to live like Jesus. We need to lead like Jesus. And here's what Proverbs 18:2 says: "Fools have no interest in understanding. They only want to air their own opinions." So today, we're going to talk about what the Word says. And we know that God created black and white. He created all colors. And we know that God is love, and we are called to love. And this is not about tolerance. This is about loving each other. So
Correct.
you are my sister in Christ, and we love you. And we want to communicate to everybody that's listening today and that's watching today that we see you and that we love you. And
Appreciate that.
so let's give a little update. I know who you are. I know your background. Not only are you a member of our church, and your husband Terry serves in our church, and you guys are involved. And but you guys are dear friends to me and Annette, and your little girl. 3 years old. Her name is Sophia, and she is in the other room right now with my daughter, hanging out. And this is you're not here today as a prop. You're here as a close friend. So let's just share briefly your upbringing and how you got here.
In the U.S., correct?
In the U.S.,
Yep.
yes.
Back in 2005, Rock Church, when they sent a mission team in Kenya, I met my husband there, and 3 years later, we got married, and here we are today.
Here you are today, and now you have a little girl. So
Yes.
we in 2005 we're in Kenya to purchase property to build a church for some friends there, and now we have a sister church in Kenya. And of course, like you just mentioned, Terry was on that trip on our building team, and you guys established a relationship. 3 years later, married, and now you've been in the U.S. for many years. So you're not just an African, you're now an African American.
Correct.
So let's just give you a chance to talk. How was this last week with George Floyd and just everything that's been going on? How has this personally affected you?
Well, it's been hard, and it's been hard to be able to see. First, it was hard to be able to see someone being killed like that, and being killed like that. Not just being killed, but being killed as a black man. It's different. It's very different. And people argue and say it shouldn't be about color, and you shouldn't be able to say black. But when you're black in America today, it's different. It was hard to be able to see the hate, how people responded. And it's just difficult because they shouldn't be like that. it shouldn't be like that.
No. And we know that there are so many more good cops than bad cops. There
Yes.
are more, I pray, more good people out there than bad people. But the reality is there are bad people in every profession, and George Floyd should have been killed.
No.
And now his death has kind of awakened our nation. And there's, obviously there's a political agenda, but we're throwing all that out today to
Yes.
say you are a real person.
That's right.
You are a real person. You're black, and you have been treated differently because of your color. Why don't you share a couple examples?
Couple examples. The first one was medical, being able to not be seen by a doctor. And I wholeheartedly believe that doctor wouldn't see me because I was a foreign black woman, either black woman or a man black person. I was supposed to see this doctor, and the day I was supposed to meet him, he walked in, and I provided the documentation I was supposed to provide for immigration. It's a long story, but I'll make it short. And when I gave him the documents, he looked at it and he said, "Hey, I'm not a foreign, I can't help you." And he walked out and left the door. But I bet you if it was different color, he probably could have not done that. And it's very hurtful to be able to see that because I never thought of anything about color, and I have learned a lot.
So that was pretty much one of your first experiences
Yes.
here in America. I mean, growing up in Kenya, you were the majority. Here, it's much different, and you found that out pretty quickly. And that's obviously not the only example, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's happened several times, but what happens is it's almost like you try to like block it and pretend it's not happening because there's nobody to listen. It happens to me when I worked at a local hospital, and I was going to buy lunch at a cafeteria with $20, and the supervisor said it was fake $20 bill. And I was on the counter, humiliated. He took my food and threw it in the garbage. It hurt me because I come from where I know people are actually hungry. To watch him dump the food in the garbage, it hurt me. He didn't give me the chance to pay with my debit card. I was going to go and get it and come and
Yeah,
pay.
you said to him, like, "Hey, I just came from the ATM." He said, "I'm sorry, the money's fake."
Yep.
And you're like, the money's not fake. It's, I work here. You had
Exactly.
you had a badge.
I had
You're
my
in
badge. I
in
was
the
in my
hospital
uniform.
Cafeteria.
Correct.
And he threw your food in the garbage.
He threw it in the garbage, and that was it. And I went without food that day, and I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe he would actually do that, but he did.
Yeah.
But it happens all the time. But it's easy not to talk about it to avoid the backlash. You don't want to be told, "Okay, you're just crying," of
Playing a victim.
and pulling a race card. That's what it's always said. So it's hard to actually not say anything.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're saying something today, and this is why you're here, so we can talk about it. Because,
Thank you for the opportunity.
in order to be empathetic, we need to understand the things that you go through. These are things that I haven't had to worry about, and I haven't experienced. And I mean, it breaks my heart that somebody took your food and threw it in the garbage. And I want you to look in the camera, and I want you to say the person's name. And we are no, okay, no, vengeance is the Lord. We're not going to do that. But First John 4:20 says, "If anyone boasts, I love God, and goes right on hating his brother and sister, thinking nothing of it, he's a liar." That's what the word says. If he won't love the person he can see, then how can he love the God he can't see? The command we have from Christ is blunt. Loving God includes loving people. We have to love both. And I think that we as the church need to lead the way and do a better job of loving people regardless of what color they are. And I'm just sorry that you've experienced some of these things. Let me ask you. I mean, your daughter is 3, and she is precious. I was tempted to bring her on, but it would probably she would be like hanging out on the desk, and then but she is just precious. So your husband is white,
Yes.
and you're black,
Yep.
and your daughter is somewhere in between.
That's right.
So has she being 3 years, has she noticed? Hey, mom's black, daddy's white. Has she?
She noticed me first. She hasn't actually noticed dad being white because she thinks white, it needs to be white.
Yeah.
So she hasn't noticed that, but she has noticed me, and she asked me when she was 2.5 years old. And she looked at me and said, "Mommy, am I black in the face like you?" And it was hard to be able to hear because we never wanted her to be a color. And that's one thing I always said. For my daughter, I was afraid actually in this country having not like it's a bad thing to be able to have a black child, but I was having a black child in America, it's different. And I was always afraid of how one day she could grow up and be treated like how I've seen black people being treated. And that was a big fear for me. And I hope that it
Doesn't happen to
I
her.
hope it doesn't happen to her.
And another experience you had was you were at a store, and you were walking out of the store. And we know that it is common for somebody to look at our receipt, but you were pretty much singled out.
Correct. Correct.
And humiliated, right?
Yep. Coming out of the store, and because we're talking about this, it's okay to say white person, black person. It's okay, because in order for this to make a difference, people have to talk about it. I'm walking out, there's a white person in front of me, and there's a white person behind me, and I'm in the middle. And I was singled out by the person who is checking the receipts. And the argument can be, you've had your receipt checked, somebody else have had their receipt checked. But when you single me as a black person in between two white people, you can't help yourself as a black person to question it.
Yeah. You know, when I shared a story with you before. When I was 5, I was in the hospital, and I had a disease called valley fever, and it was a really, really serious, and it's normally not a serious disease, but what I was told was 10 out of every 1,000 people have a fatal case. And of course, God healed me, but back then I was in the hospital, and I was friends with a little black boy named Johnny, and he had a kidney disease, so he was pretty swollen. And some kids, they didn't take his food, but they took his toys, and they threw his toys in the garbage. And so I went and got him out of the garbage, and this is before we were friends. I went and got his toys out of the garbage and brought them to him and played with him, and we became instant best friends, just like that. And then I got put in quarantine, believe it or not because of COVID, but I was, because of the disease that I had, I was in isolation for a little bit. And then when I got out of isolation, little Johnny was still in the hospital, so they made us roommates because we had been playing so good and befriended each other. And I still remember we had the beds with the button so they would move up and down. And I think my mom or somebody brought us toy fishing poles, and we pretended we fishing, and we were just really good friends. My mom just sat back and she watched this, how I befriended. I did not see color. At least she didn't think I did. So she said to me, and we were just talking about this a couple of days ago, and she wanted to know if I noticed and what I saw. So she said, "Johnny's different than you, isn't he, Chucky?" And I said, "He sure is. He's fat and I'm not." I did not see the color, and obviously we've heard a lot of people say that, we need to be colorblind, and there's some truth to that, but I heard a different perspective, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. But Pastor John Gray, he is a black pastor. He's hilarious. He's a great preacher. And I saw him in an interview with Stephen Furtick, and this is what he said: "Stop saying you're colorblind. Stop saying I don't see color. God created different colors and cultures. His prayer wasn't that we wouldn't see the color, but his prayer was that in spite of our colors, we would be one." So how do you feel about that statement?
Color really shouldn't be an issue. You should see a person just like you would see another person. It should be, we are one at the end of the day. I bleed the same way you bleed. We are one, and it's just the division has been so hard. So hard, and it just starts with me and you.
Yeah.
To be able to make a difference.
To have a conversation, to say, let's.
Yes.
You know what? This is not polished, just sit down and let's turn on the microphone and the cameras and let's just talk about it. Hopefully our conversation today can help you see who Veronica is, and see that we're on the same team. And Jesus prayed that we would be one. In fact, Galatians 3:28 says, "There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male or female, for you are all one
That's right.
in Christ Jesus." And Tony Evans says this: "There's no difference between racial tolerance and racial oneness. We are one. There shouldn't be a difference."
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So having said that, let's get to the conversation about Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. So one response to those who are saying right now Black Lives Matter is no, all lives matter. Before I share my opinion, I want to know, what's your opinion? How does that make you feel? Does that rub you the wrong way? Does that bother you within the climate of today right now?
See, what bothers me is that the fact that people want to not acknowledge, to be able to acknowledge that, because Black Lives Matter right now. Because right now, Black lives feels like they matter less. All lives do matter. Not like they don't matter. Nobody is saying, hey, other lives don't matter, but Black lives matter. No, Black lives matters because right now we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody should be able to notice. It's not just, there's more in depth about that statement, Black lives matters. If you read it and stop and think, you'll be able to understand. It's right now we're dealing with racism today. So that's why Black lives do matter right now.
Right now, absolutely. I love that. And this is not about an organization. This is not about politicizing this. The reality is this: Veronica matters. All right? So if somebody says Black Lives Matter and then somebody next to you says, no, all lives matter. Here's what Judah Smith says: all lives do not matter until Black Lives Matter. Until we can see Veronica and others that are like her. And I love the way that hip-hop artist Talib Kweli, I don't even know if he's saying his name. I've never listened to him. I don't know who he is. But I saw this, I heard this quote by him, and I think it's really will help bring some perspective to this conversation. He said, if I say my house is on fire and you say all houses matter, well, that may be true, but all houses aren't on fire right now.
Today.
My house is on fire right
Yes.
now. And right now, the climate of our culture is pointing to you, right? And this is the discussion of today because of George Floyd and because of everything that's going on in our nation. We have to stop for the moment and say, yeah, I mean, Jesus, he left the 99 to go after the one, to single out the one. And so I think to help communicate to a world and to people out there who don't want to see you, and they don't want to treat you the same, or they may judge you because of your color and may not even like you because of your color. That's why we have to say, no, Veronica, you matter.
That's right.
You matter. Black people, you matter. African Americans, you matter. We see you. We're going to listen. Let's have some conversation. Let's talk about that. I love Carl Lentz, Hillsong in New York. I watched a clip of him a few days ago, and he was saying the same thing. Look, Black Lives Matter right now. So we got to say that right now. All right. We have to care. We have to show empathy. And for the people out there who are trying to discount you from saying that and stop you from saying that, and they just want to shout, no, all lives matter. All right. For one, it's just inconsiderate. For one, that it's ignoring. If I would say that to you, when we already shared how that makes you feel, right? So Carl Lentz said the people that are saying no, all lives matter, probably would have interrupted Jesus when he was preaching the Sermon on the Mount, when he said, "Blessed are the poor." Oh, no, 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 Jesus, blessed is everyone. In that moment, Jesus said, "Blessed is the poor." And right now, Black Lives Matter. Like Judas Smith said, all lives can't matter until we see you, until the prayer of Jesus answers that we become one.
Correct.
So, man, I really appreciate you taking time to sit here and to share your heart. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Anything else that you'd like to say?
There's a lot.
Well, we need another podcast.
Right? But because it's a conversation that need to continue. People need to be able to get comfortable to talk about it, because the biggest problem is to avoid a subject that's making you uncomfortable. But when it's making you uncomfortable and you choose not to talk about it, you become a part of the problem. And that's what I saw myself. It took me a long time to actually post on Facebook and say Black Lives Matter. They do matter. But I was afraid of what would be the consequence of, like you said, someone's going to think that I thought their life don't matter.
Yeah.
It's the communication of it, and need to be able to continue. People need to be able to talk about it and not avoid those sensitive subjects, because if you don't talk about it, you'll never know the problem.
Yep, and I think I've been there before, and that's why I'll be the first to admit that, you know what, I'm still learning, and I have failed, and I need to do a better job. And as a pastor, you know, I preach and I love everybody, and I've never been prejudiced or racial, but I think that I probably posted at some point, maybe a couple years ago. I think I may have tweeted or posted "All Lives Matter," and not taking into consideration how that makes people like you feel. So this has been personally, it's been good for me. And I think me as a leader, I have to do my part in
That's very correct.
in sharing and giving you a voice today to say, okay, the only way we're going to see change is to move beyond the awkward and to
Yes.
talk about it.
And start with you. People will say, well, the media is saying this. No, this is right now.
Yeah.
You take the responsibilities. Someone who is as a leader, to be able to actually tell people, hey, this is what the issue is, and we need to be able to address it right now. Don't put it in the back burner. It needs to be today, right now.
Right
and
now.
that's what's going to make the difference, because people are saying, well, you need to be able to tell us, what do we need to do? Just start with you. What are you saying? What are you doing? Acknowledging. Make Black people feel like, I do see you.
Yes.
I do hear you.
Yes.
Treat people equally. It's a conversation that's going to need to be able to be talked about too.
Amen. You know, and what we have to do is be intentional about establishing common ground so we can share the gospel. All right? It's so important to include Jesus when we're discussing social justice, right? It's all about Jesus,
Yes.
right? But here's the deal. Here's what the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 13. Our message, the good news of Jesus, is meaningless if we don't love. Without love, we're just a clanging cymbal. So we have got to do, I have got to do a better job of loving everyone, being intentional to establish relationship, establish common ground, so I earn the right to speak into somebody's life.
Yes.
And for you to say, no, all lives matter, all lives matter. How in the world are you going to reach somebody who's Black, who needs Jesus? Mm-hmm. All right? All you're doing is pushing them away.
Yes.
So let's include them into our life and invite them into our conversation, so we can establish common ground, so we can talk to them, so we can preach the gospel, so we can share the good news of Jesus. After all, that's what heaven's going to look like, all right? Heaven's going to be filled with not just Black and white people, but with, my brother-in-law, he's Asian, and he experienced racial prejudice in Indonesia, and he came to America to seek asylum. He was afraid for his life. But right now, this is the conversation that we're having, and we need to talk about it. So thank you for being willing to talk about it. I think I'm going to close this out with one final scripture from Revelation chapter 7 to give a little glimpse of what the future looks like. After this, I saw a vast crowd, too great to count, from every nation, every tribe, every people, every language, standing in front of the throne and before the Lamb. They were clothed in white robes and held palm branches in their hands, and they were shouting with a great roar, "Salvation comes from our God who sits on the throne and from the Lamb." He is our God. He's not my God. He's not your God. He is our God. And we are one. Jesus prayed that we would be one. And I hope that today's conversation will bring that closer together. So,
I hope so too.
Veronicah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
yes.
you for stepping up to be able to speak on a subject that most people wouldn't. That means a lot.
Yeah, well,
Very much appreciated.
yeah, well, we love you, Terry and Sophia. So for our producer, Mike Sable, I'm Chuck Tate. You have been listening to 41 Strong, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.
PeoriaLife.com